Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Grab a snack, get comfortable, and buckle up, because tonight's story is a wild ride straight out of my teenage years. We're talking massive mansion parties, ridiculous high school drama, running from the cops, and the absolute chaos of being young, broke, and looking for a good time. If you've ever crashed a party you had absolutely no business being at, you're going to relate to this one. One day, us girls were sitting around at Tessa's house, absolutely dying of boredom as dusk was falling over the city. The air was thick with that oppressive late summer heat, and we had exactly zero plans. We were flipping through channels, thumbing through magazines, just waiting for something, anything, to happen. Suddenly, Jay sat up so fast she nearly knocked over her half-empty soda. She remembered a party she had heard about through the grapevine. "San Dimas," she said, her eyes lighting up with that dangerous, mischievous glint we all knew too well. "There's a massive party tonight." Come to find out, Jay didn't even know the kid hosting it. His parents had gone out of town for the weekend, and like a classic rookie mistake, this guy had sent out a general invitation to just about everyone at San Dimas High School. The invite had spread like wildfire. Jay didn't even have the exact address, she just knew the name of the street he lived on. But when you're teenagers with nothing to lose and a desperate need for a fun Friday night, a street name is the only GPS you need. We all jumped up, the boredom instantly evaporating, and threw on our finest. Now, for us, our finest wasn't very fine considering how broke we all were. We were rocking thrifted crop tops, cut off denim we'd frayed ourselves, and eyeliner sharp enough to cut glass. We didn't have designer labels, but we had an absolute surplus of confidence. We piled into Jay's cherry red Mustang, a vehicle that roared like a lion on wheels, and blasted the radio as we headed away from the hills. We didn't need to know the address. As soon as we pulled into the affluent tree-lined street in San Dimas, it was blindingly obvious where the party was. Even from 3 blocks away, you could hear the heavy, rhythmic thumping of the bass vibrating through the asphalt. Cars were parked haphazardly on both sides of the street, up on curbs, even blocking driveways. And then we saw it. I would call it a house, but honestly, it was like a mansion. It sat at the end of a long, sweeping driveway, 3 stories of pristine stucco and glass. Every single light in the place was blazing, illuminating the front lawn like a football stadium. Music was pouring out of every open door and window, a chaotic mix of rock and the roar of 100 overlapping conversations. "Act like you own the place," Jay whispered over her shoulder as we slammed the car doors shut. We strolled up the driveway, our cheap heels clicking against the expensive cobblestone. We didn't sneak. We didn't hover by the door. We casually walked right through the massive double doors and instantly melted into the fray. The inside was insane. Vaulted ceilings, sweeping staircases, huge, expensive-looking paintings, and wall-to-wall teenagers holding red Solo cups. It smelled like cheap beer, expensive perfume, and adolescent sweat. We made our way straight to the kitchen, weaving our way through bodies ready to take over the night. It didn't take long for the social dynamics of the room to become glaringly obvious. There was a massive unspoken divide in this house. On one side, you had us, the gatecrashers, the broke girls from a few towns over who came here to actually party. We were dancing in the living room, laughing loudly, raiding the fridge, and generally just having the time of our lives. And then, lining the walls and draped over the expensive leather furniture, were the rich girls. You know the type. They were absolutely gorgeous, wearing outfits that cost more than 6 months of rent, with perfectly blown-out hair and flawless manicures. But they were entirely painfully aloof. They stood in tight little circles, holding their cups like accessories rather than drinks, whispering to each other and shooting us with withering glares from across the room. They weren't there to have fun. They were there to be seen. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Every time we walked past them, the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. But here was the kicker. The guys absolutely loved us. While the rich girls were standing around looking beautifully bored and unapproachable, we were in the center of the room, initiating games of pool, dancing without caring what we looked like, and actually talking to people. We were loud, we were energetic, and the high school bros were flocking to our group like moths to a flame. You could practically see the steam coming out of the rich girls' ears as their crushes and boyfriends kept drifting over to our side of the house, laughing at Jay's jokes or challenging me to a game of darts. It was a powder keg, and the fuse was already lit. I needed a break from the noise and the glaring matches, so I slipped away from the living room and wandered toward the back patio to get some fresh air. It was a little quieter out there, overlooking a massive glowing blue swimming pool. That's when I noticed a guy leaning against the brick barbecue island, sipping a beer and watching the chaos inside with a look of mild amusement. He clearly didn't belong to the high school crowd. He was taller, a bit broader, and carried himself with an easy confidence that you just don't have at 17. He had dark hair, slightly scuffed leather jacket, and eyes that missed absolutely nothing. "Your friends are causing quite the stir in there," he said as I walked up, his voice smooth and deep over the thumping bass from inside. I laughed, leaning against the counter next to him. "We try our best. I think the local royalty is ready to have us executed." He extended a hand. "I'm Evan." "Nice to meet you, Evan. You look a little old to be crashing a high school sophomore's free-for-all." He chuckled, taking a sip of his drink. "I'm not crashing. Unfortunately, the idiot who threw this party is my little brother. I'm just here to make sure he doesn't burn the house down before my parents get back from Aspen." We hit it off immediately. Evan was in his early 20s, and the contrast between him and the sweaty, overly eager high school boys inside was night and day. He was smart, funny, and incredibly laid back. We stood out there for 20 minutes just trading stories. He told me he actually owned his own place a couple of towns over in Covina. "Honestly," Evan said, glancing back at the house as another glass shattered somewhere inside, followed by a chorus of frat boy cheers, "this high school bro vibe is giving me a headache. My place in Covina has a much more mellow vibe. A fire pit, some decent music on the patio. You and your friends, you should ditch this circus and come hang out there." I smiled. "That actually sounds amazing. Let me go grab the girls." I had no idea that while I was having a charming conversation by the pool, the powder keg inside had finally exploded. I walked back into the house just as the music suddenly cut out. When the music stops at a party like that, it's never a good sign. It means either the cops are at the door or someone is bleeding. I pushed my way through the crowd, which was rapidly surging toward a hallway leading to the guest bedrooms. "What's going on?" I asked a random guy who was practically jogging down the hall. "Cat fight!" he yelled, far too excitedly. I pushed my way to the front of the mob, my heart sinking. Standing in the middle of a trashed, empty guest bedroom was Tess, one of my best friends, the wildest of our group. Her hair was a little messy, her lipstick was smudged, and she was looking defiantly at a girl standing opposite her. The other girl was one of the rich girls, the aloof, pretty ones. Except right now, she wasn't pretty at all. Her face was bright red, tears were streaming down her cheeks, and she was screaming at the top of her lungs. Standing sheepishly between them, looking like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole, was the rich girl's boyfriend. The story put itself together in about 2 seconds. The boyfriend had wandered off, found Tess in an empty room, and they had been aggressively making out when the girlfriend walked in. "You absolute trash!" the rich girl shrieked, taking a step toward Tess. "Oh, please," Tess shot back, completely unapologetic and rolling her eyes. "He was the one following me around all night like a lost puppy." That was the tipping point. The rich girl lunged. She grabbed a handful of Tessa's hair, and Tess immediately swung back, her plastic cup of whatever it was she was drinking flying across the room and splashing against the expensive wallpaper. The crowd erupted into screams and cheers. The two girls hit the floor, tumbling over an ottoman, knocking over a side table, and sending a very expensive-looking lamp crashing to the hardwood floor. "Tess!" I yelled, trying to push through the wall of bodies to break it up. Jay and Maya suddenly appeared beside me, looking panicked. We were just about to dive into the melee when a new sound cut through the screaming. Whoop, whoop! The unmistakable, ear-piercing chirp of a police siren. The effect was instantaneous. The fight stopped, the cheering stopped. For 3 agonizing seconds, there was dead silence in the mansion. Then the flashing red and blue lights illuminated the front windows, casting wild, spinning shadows across the vaulted ceiling. "Cops!" someone screamed. Absolute pandemonium. It was like kicking an anthill. Over 100 teenagers simultaneously panicked, sprinting in every direction. People were diving out of ground floor windows, slipping on spilled drinks, and bottlenecking in the hallway. The sound of heavy flashlights banging against the front door echoed through the hall. "San Dimas police! Open the door!" Someone grabbed my arm in a vice grip. I spun around, ready to swing, but it was Evan. "Time to go," he said, his voice completely calm despite the riot happening around us. "Now." "My friends," I started. "Grab them," he ordered. I grabbed Jay, who was pulling Tess up from the floor. Tess was missing a shoe and her shirt was torn, but she was laughing a wild, adrenaline-fueled laugh. We linked hands, a chain of 4 girls in cheap party clothes and one very calm older brother, and let Evan pull us away from the front of the house. "They're coming through the front! To the back!" Evan yelled over the screaming. We sprinted through the sprawling kitchen. Through the windows, I could see the flashlight beams sweeping across the backyard. The cops were flanking the house. "They're in the yard!" Maya cried out. Not this way," Evan said, abruptly changing direction. He shoved open a heavy side door that led us into a darkened laundry room, and then kicked open a screen door that dumped us into a narrow, unlit side yard. "Keep your heads down," he hissed. We crouched, running awkwardly in our skirts and heels. The side yard ended in a massive 10-foot-tall wall of thick, thorny ficus hedges that separated the mansion from the neighbor's property. "Over the wall?" Jay whispered, panicked. "Through," Evan corrected. He didn't hesitate. He hit the hedge like a linebacker, pushing his way into the dense branches. We followed, fighting through the thick leaves and scratching branches. Thorns snagged on my thrifted skirt, snapping the fabric. Tess cursed loudly as a branch whipped her in the face. It was completely dark inside the hedge, suffocating and claustrophobic. "Hurry!" I whispered, shoving Maya forward. Behind us, we heard the side gate kick open. "I've got movement on the side yard. Check the bushes," a deep voice yelled. A blinding white beam of light sliced through the leaves just inches from my face. We froze. I stopped breathing. 5 of us were crammed into the center of this massive hedge, tangled in each other's limbs, our hearts hammering so loudly I was sure the cops could hear it. The flashlight beams swept back and forth. The heavy boots crunched on the gravel mere feet away from us. "Nothing here, Sarge. Just a stray cat, maybe." "All right, secure the perimeter. We've got runners heading down the street." The boots crunched away. The flashlight beam vanished. Evan exhaled a breath he had been holding. "Okay," he whispered. "Push through." With one final desperate shove, we tumbled out the other side, rolling into the perfectly manicured grass of the neighbor's completely dark, silent backyard. We lay there in the damp grass, staring up at the stars, chest heaving. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Tess let out a quiet snort. Jay giggled. Within seconds, all 4 of us were trying to muffle our hysterical laughter into the neighbor's lawn, the sheer adrenaline of the escape washing over us. Evan sat up, brushing leaves off his leather jacket, shaking his head with a wide grin. Well, he said, looking at our scratched legs, ruined clothes, and Tessa's single missing shoe, I'd say you girls have officially outstayed your welcome in San Dimas. My car is parked 2 streets over. Who's ready for that fire pit in Covina? We all threw our hands in the air. We spent the rest of the night at Evan's house, which is a story for another day. It was exactly what we had been looking for when we were sitting bored in that house, a night we would never, ever forget. We learned a valuable lesson that night. Sometimes the best part of the party is the escape. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this crazy story from my early years, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel for more wild stories of a teenage runaway. Let me know down in the comments, what is the craziest party you ever crashed? And did you have to make a wild escape? And hey, before I go, a quick, serious note. Growing up, navigating the streets and dealing with social pressure can be incredibly overwhelming. While this story was a fun adventure, the reality is that sometimes life gets really heavy and the drama stops being fun. If you or someone you know is feeling lost, overwhelmed, or in a dark place, please know that you do not have to handle it alone. There is absolutely no shame in reaching out for help. You can dial or text 988 to the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, which is available 24/7 in English and Spanish. You can text the word HOME, HOME, to 741-741 to reach the crisis text line. And for LGBTQ youth, you can reach the Trevor Project by calling 1-866-488-7386 or text the word START, START, to the number 678-678. Take care of yourselves, look out for your friends, and I'll see you in the next video.